It seems like Apple over the last 4 or 5 days has really come back into a prevalent place in the Pac-12 TV deal. Wednesday, we started talking to our sources about it. It was interesting today. We got a lot of return on that investment on our time Wednesday. And I can only tell you straight away that the lies and the spin that come out about Apple TV and this exclusivity and listen, today, I want to make sure that we get this right because it has never been said on this show that Apple TV has everything on everything they do. They're the only MLS outlet. Well, that's actually not the case. Fox occasionally, very occasionally, gets an MLS game. I believe they have 15 a year. Apple TV also has the MLB package, but that's a Friday night game of the week. The thing I think you have to look at is the position that Apple TV is in. And here's the truth, separated from lies. Apple does not do professional sports all in very well. They have not, at least to this point. They have struggled with MLS, and I know that I tweeted about this earlier today, and Twitter lost its mind saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. Here are the facts of the case. It has been an abject failure for MLS to be all in with Apple TV, and they are essentially all in with Apple TV. I get it. Fox gets a handful of games. But what is the reality of the MLS TV deal? It's Apple TV, right? There are some free games. There are some Apple TV exclusives. Totally understand it. But if it's doing so well as about 5 diehard MLS fans said on Twitter today, explain to me why Apple TV and MLS do not release TV numbers. Explain to me why we are not celebrating the great exponential reach of Apple TV for MLS. Well, because their reach shrank. And the subscription numbers have not risen to the level that Apple TV was expecting. And it's a real problem for MLS. So the truth about Apple is an unproven distribution partner in the sports world. The other part of this that you have to remember, I had a conversation late this afternoon before the show with a really well-placed source in the Pac-12 who pointed something out that I think a lot of people forget. Apple TV does not produce games. Apple TV is not in the TV production business. They are in the TV streaming business. And what that means is if you're the Pac-12, and let's put the number at 30 million, because that's the number we've heard that all of a sudden it's $30 million. And okay, great. It's $30 million. But if it's $200-something thousand a game to produce, how much of that is, you're looking at $30 million minus what? If you play 9 conference games, if you play, 8 conference games and 3 out of conference, like whatever your schedule mix turns out to be down the road, right? You're looking at probably $2-3 million a year per team just in television production costs. Maintenance, you got to remember, hey, sure, you have Pac-12 networks, they produce games. No problem, right? But you got to remember they have equipment maintenance, equipment upkeep. That does not include, that's just hardware cost. And this source at the Pac-12 who called me this afternoon made a really good point. We have not talked about the fact that we have a TV production problem in the Pac-12. The quality of TV production is not always at its finest in the Pac-12, which I think as Pac-12 fans, we all know that. Watching Pac-12 programming across Pac-12 networks can be adventurous. And oh, by the way, let's not forget, the Pac-12 shut down their headquarters in San Francisco. They are going to a production company model. So if you go with Apple TV, it's an expensive endeavor to produce games. And frankly, for my money, I think it's a real problem. Because if you're the Pac-12, Jake, and I'm not trying to make too much out of this, and again, not to keep telling you what my sources told me, this particular person pretty high up the food chain in the Pac-12 made another really good point today. Hey, if it's a step down, we can't do it because the little guys in this conference that are always forgotten, and overlooked, according to my source, cannot afford to take a step back at all financially, Jake. That's why I say I don't know that Apple TV is a real option for this conference.
Yeah, I think there's always been a measurement here of plus and minus with Apple TV. I think it's widely accepted that Apple TV, if you partner with them, are going to dominate your distribution. I mean, whether we want to say that, another outlet, ESPN as an example, is going to get a couple games a year or 5 games a year, whatever the number winds up being, right? Like Apple TV is going to be the home for the majority of Pac-12, football, basketball, whatever it winds up being. And I look at this and I say, yeah, there are costs of doing business. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you don't, partner with an ESPN or a Fox or an outlet that packages that distribution into the deal. So now you have to pay.
That's only in business to be the very top of their profession.
Yeah, because that's the real difference as a fan watching sports, right? I mean,
yes.
Hell, I mean, you see it with golf might be one of the best examples, right? If you're an avid golf watcher, you know the experience. You know what it is when it's on CBS versus when it's on NBC, right? I know what it is when the NHL jumped to ESPN. I know for a fact that with baseball, I'm not a Matt Vasgersian guy. I'm not going to watch that game because I don't enjoy listening to Buddy.
Yeah.
Like, as a sports fan, that's what it is. So with football, it's like, yeah, man, like I want a certain kind of graphic. I want a certain feel. I want a certain voice. Like I need
a director who understands camera angles and timing. And I'm not saying that's a consistent problem in the Pac-12. But when you downsize your network, which is what they did in the Pac-12, they closed their San Francisco offices. They are moving to the East Bay, down the street from where we used to live in San Francisco. We know it well. I think when you look at the Pac-12 and you look at situations like Fox last year with the Utah game, they didn't send their announcers on site. They had no idea Cam Rising was not playing in that game. They had no idea that he was out, because their play-by-play team was back in a Los Angeles studio. And it makes it very difficult to produce those games at a high level. That, to me, is a shot over the bow, because the other thing that concerns you is if the Pac-12 is producing these games, where are they going to cut corners to save money? Because all of these I mean, there are very few universities in this conference that are making money hand over fist. There are very few. And that's a real concern. And I agree with their move to the technical name is San Ramon, California, the East Bay. I agree with their move to the East Bay. It saves them money. They don't need, I think they had 9 satellite feeds every single Saturday. You don't need that. It needs to be the Pac-12 network. Pac-12 networks is because they put out 8-9 feeds. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Do you know how much, and I think people don't think about this. Do you understand the cost of just satellite time to distribute a football game? It's not a cheap endeavor to produce these games. And when you own your own equipment, you are constantly behind the technology curve. I'm just telling you, this thing with Apple TV is not as cut and dry as people make it out to be. And I also think the other big issue that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show, Jake, is how many of these Pac-12 presidents will sign a grant of rights if it's just 95% Apple TV streaming?
Yeah, I mean, that's the tough part. I think that, the schools that are at the top of the conference are not going to sign a deal that's 95% Apple. They're not going to do that. And I can't say that I blame them. I mean, again, schools at the top of the Pac-12 would obviously be Oregon, Washington. I'd even throw Utah into that group. Those schools, I'm not so sure, specifically Oregon and Washington, are definitely not signing a deal that's 90% plus Apple. They're not doing that, and that's because they know that they could get to another conference or they can get to another opportunity that pays them more money and puts them on more TVs. They just know that, and I think that's the other side of the Apple conundrum. It's like, all right, cool, yeah, there are millions of iPhones and Apple products in the world. But just because I have a car doesn't mean I'm going to drive it fast. Just because I have, an iPhone 13 Pro Max with a 1 terabyte storage doesn't mean that I'm hot to trot to watch Washington State or Oregon State or certain products in the Pac-12. And I think that's the thing that Apple and the MLS are running from, which is why we don't see their numbers, right? That's why the numbers don't get put out, because they would not be kind to the brand, which is why I think MLS was so hardcore after Lionel Messi, because they said, okay, if we can go and get Lionel, That should help our deal with Apple. That should help us drive numbers. And so my question is if you get the Pac-12 and whatever that looks like, it's 8 teams or, whatever it winds up being. If you get that conference on Apple, what is the draw? Why? Because you don't have your Lionel Messi, if you will. You don't have Alabama. You don't have Oregon and Washington to lean on. And that's what I think ultimately is the undoing of the Apple situation. I mean, you can have production costs and these different P&L line item issues. Absolutely, those are problems. But if you don't have a need, if you don't have a thing to bring eyeballs, I'm just not sure that you can be successful.
But I think Lionel Messi's a really interesting example for Apple TV in this conundrum MLS finds itself in with reach. If you're Inter Miami and Lionel Messi signs with you, do you know how much money you're not making on your local TV deal? Do you know how much money you're not making in the ability to distribute your own content? Man, that is a kick in the balls. And I think it's really I mean, you look at the Las Vegas Golden Knights. How much money did they just make on their new local TV deal with Ion Scripts? They just won the Stanley Cup. And now, for those of you who don't know, the Las Vegas Golden Knights announced a new regional TV deal with Ion Scripts that will put them in Nevada, Utah, and Idaho, I believe. And that's all inventory that they own, that they sell with Ion Scripts.
I'm for real.
You just won the Stanley Cup. You just started a new TV deal. Like, it's a windfall of cash. So I go back to somebody like Inter. I go back to somebody like the Pac-12 deal with Apple TV. My biggest concern for the Pac-12 is how much money are you not going to make by going 95, even if it's not, let's say 90% stream.
Yeah.
Let's say you get a Pac-12 game of the week on Fox, or you get a Pac-12 basketball game of the week on Fox, or a football game of the week on ESPN in the late window, let's say.
Yeah.
Does that still cover the gap and still cover the lack of reach? Because you can't tell me that Apple's going to give up the best game of the weekend in the Pac-12. I can't believe that.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No way.
But I can't see
What's the point
them,
of doing the deal?
I can't see, especially when it's $300 million a year.
Yeah.
Like, I have trouble believing that.
So then from Apple's side, if Oregon and Washington aren't part of this deal, and you don't have USC and UCLA, what really are we buying?
That's what I'm talking about.
So,
and I think that's the biggest question. What really are we buying? And what really are we getting? And how quality is the broadcast? Because, again, I go back to the execution at the Pac-12 network, and it has routinely been a shit show.
Because it's garbage.
In their trucks and in their director's booths. And they have had some really good directors who no longer work there. They have had some really, I don't think people understand what goes into a TV production. And again, I've been in the business. I've done this for a living. I can tell you the very best productions travel together week in and week out. Your directors, your producers, and your camera crews all travel together. They show up. Monday Night Football is the best example of it. They show up on site together. They prep for those games together. They configure their camera layouts in each stadium together. It is systematic.
It's an invisible show, man.
A plus B equals C, D, E. They just knock it down. In the Pac-12, they haven't done that. And a lot of it is, hey, yeah, we have our own trucks and they're on site. Okay, great. But we're going to have a producer in Los Angeles do this game. We're going to have a director in San Francisco call the shots on this game. And it's why you see, if you watch college football, if you watch Pac-12 football on the Pac-12 networks, there's a lot of games where you'll see a guy score a touchdown and the camera won't be there. It'll be late because you're a second and a half behind because you're sitting in San Francisco trying to produce a game in Pullman, Washington. And you don't know that Cam Rising's not starting at quarterback because he's injured because you're in Los Angeles, you're not in Pullman, Washington.
Yeah.
That's been routine in the Pac-12, and frankly, it's not good enough for a Power 5 conference.
Yeah.
You got to be better than that. So my question is if you're hurting for money already, and I think we all, whether you support the Pac-12 or you don't, there's no way to get around the fact that this conference is digging out of Larry Scott's financial improprieties, financial misdealings, like however you want to spin it.
Totally agree.
They've got a hole they're digging out of financially. So if I don't have to send Larry, the director, to Seattle, or if I don't have to send him to San Diego, and I can save a per diem, the money that you pay him for 4 days to be there, because it's not 1 day, it's 4 days, right? Because you have pre-production shoots, and hey, if I can save the per diem for 4 days, and I don't have to pay for a hotel, and I don't have to pay for airfare and food, why would I just put that back in my pocket to pay Comcast, to offset Comcast? Or that's what I'm worried about in the Pac-12, because these universities deserve better than that. The fan bases around the Pac-12 deserve better than that.
Yeah.
And I just, if it goes to Apple, that's my biggest concern. Because, again, I think if you've watched this show for any amount of time, you know I believe that they should heavily invest in streaming.
Yeah.
Because it is the future. It is absolutely the future of sports. But don't cut corners.
I don't think that streaming is at a point where you can just invest in it and watch it organically grow. I think streaming in the football space is definitely the future, and it's very close to the now. But for a conference like the Pac-12 that struggles in business acumen, that is something that you would need to market and water that plant regularly. And this is the difference between the Pac-12 and pretty much every other conference. Because I look at every other conference, and I'm like, yeah, wow. I've got a reason to watch ACC basketball. I've got a reason to watch SEC football. I'm not particularly interested in SEC basketball, but I was this year, right? And then obviously the Big 12 and the Big 10, it goes without saying. So
look at College Game Day.
Yeah.
Look at the production that is college. It is a behemoth.
I don't think people, generally speaking, understand all the work that goes into producing. I don't think people do.
I don't think people understand that when you produce at the highest levels, when you wear the Fox brand or CBS or NBC, look at the production that's at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Like, you know who else does it at an extremely high level? Look at BYU TV.
Mm-hmm.
But why does BYU TV do it at such a high level? Because they were independent and they had no other choice.
Yeah.
They had no other choice because BYU soccer, their third tier athletic endeavors were all on BYU TV.
Uh-huh.
So it had to be done at a high level. And I agree with you. I don't think people understand it. I really don't. All right, let's get to your comments. Thanks so much for watching the show, you guys. Another week is down. I appreciate all of you. Almost 1,000 people have watched the show. Please hit the like button. If you have not, if you're one of the 529 people or so that are here watching the show, please hit the like button. First one in says, Hero75 for $5 says, wouldn't the price to produce every game be higher than only a few million? They would have to produce every basketball and baseball game as well. But that's the question. Are you not going to televise Pac-12 baseball?
That's the burning part of the conversation.
Because most of the time, Pac-12 baseball is not on. Nobody thinks about it. It's not in your consciousness. When do you see college baseball? Well, right now during the College World Series. By the way, who's got that contract?
Mm-hmm.
ESPN and ABC. Who's got the Women's College World Series? ESPN and ABC.
We're in a control position.
Right? So you don't have... I think the biggest concern, and if it were me, it would be football, because that's where you build your brand. Basketball, this is not a basketball conference in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I just don't think in college athletics there's any question. It begins and ends with football.
You have to make your money in football.
I mean, once you have football, then you can start looking at basketball. Then you can start reaching down into sports like baseball and softball and, these different, second-tier sports. I mean, that's what they are. It's football and everything else. And I think you look at the SEC. Basketball in the SEC wasn't a thing until Nick Saban at Alabama went and did some Nick Sabaning, and then all of a sudden Alabama basketball was good, and then all of a sudden all these other programs were good. Like, that's how it happens. So in the Pac, you got to go football first.
And I think when we talk about cost per game, it depends on how you set that up. You can mitigate a lot of your costs by Are you going to build staff? Are you going to pay producers, directors, camera guys? Are you going to have first down lines? Are you going to have, do you guys know how much fucking money first down lines cost? I don't think people understand it. Putting those first down markers on the field has gotten a little cheaper, but it is not cheap. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars a game because it's all technology, dude. So are you going to do that? Are you going to pay? Because if it's Apple TV, you're probably producing 2 games a week, right? I mean, that would be my guess. You're probably producing 2 games a week. And then my other guess would be if you had a linear partner, a Fox, ESPN, whoever, NBC, because I still think NBC's a player. I don't think they're out altogether.
Right.
But if you got a game of the week on NBC, NBC is going to produce that game. You're probably producing full-time 2 college football games a week. So are we going to contract those people and say, hey, I'll pay you $500 a game to be a cameraman? Hey, let's put you on staff and have 20 cameramen on staff. Because one of the other things nobody thinks about is how many cameras are you going to put in that stadium? Yeah. Okay, so if it is Utah and Oregon at Rice-Eccles Stadium, you can't do 6 cameras. Right? Are you going to do a sky cam? Are you going to have a cable camera above the field? You're probably not. In all seriousness, you're probably not. Are you going to have the ability to put watermarks on the field where you can put Kroger food stores or whatever?
Rocket Mortgage.
Right? Are you going to have that ability? That all costs money, and it's not cheap, dudes. I'm telling you, if it's $500,000 a game split between 2 teams, I mean, that's a lot of bread. That's a lot of money that we're talking about.
Yes.
Each one of these institutions is probably into this for millions a year.
Yeah.
And if the Pac-12 is producing games.
On top of Comcast, on top of the Holiday Bowl, on top of the money you're not making. So you can start to see how the margin gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's why I say, man, like, you know, unfortunately, I wish this was the conversation we were having a year ago.
Yes.
I wish that the Pac-12 was in a position where, you know, it was like, hey, we're looking at Apple, you know, as a real option here, but we have time. Let's go out and vet out some linear options too, just to see if there's anything there. The problem is you've done it backwards. You wanted to vet linear first, and really, you wanted to say no to the Big 12 merger. Then you wanted to vet linear. Now you're falling back to streaming. And so now it's like been this cascading thing, this snowball effect where the clock is ticking, and really you're running out of time here. And it feels like you're being pigeonholed into doing business with Apple instead of going full bore in an excited fashion into a linear and streaming portion. And that's what I think the struggle is.
John Teal, what's up with you, my guy? Thank you for the $5 tip. Brett Yormark is doing George Kliavkoff the way Doc Holliday did Johnny Ringo. Man, I love Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday. When Johnny Ringo or Doc Holliday puts Johnny Ringo to sleep, so good. Carson, why are Stanford and Cal so quiet? Because they have options. When you have options, you don't talk. So you haven't heard from Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. They have options.
Yep.
They have options. Provo Cougar fan gives us $10 to say, I lost my credit card. Oh, that's the worst. Canceled the account before my show membership process. Need to recharge on a new account. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for supporting the show. Let's see. Who else is in today? Cougar Tracks. Bring it on, Connor. What did Connor say? Connor apparently is getting into it with people. That's not a surprise. Connor Johnson is one of the known pain in the asses on this show. Chad Masters, I like the production value of pro wrestling in the 80s. Well, that's what you get on Pac-12 Network. I'm serious that I don't think people understand. I don't think people understand how TV productions are done. Like, have you ever stopped and thought about how much do they pay the guy on the field with the orange gloves that says timeout? How much do they pay that guy? Are you going to pay a sideline reporter? Are you going to pay a sideline reporter for each side in a conference championship game? Are you, think about that. Like, it's the stuff you don't think about. How many cameras are you going to have on the field? Well, we need to save a little bit of money for that Comcast repayment. why don't we not have cameras on the field? We'll just put 6 in the stadium.
Do you have the technology to hook up a drone to your TV broadcast and the money to pay the pilot?
Because the big boys do. And by the way, that pilot has to be certified because he's flying over other humans. So, like, these are, I think people think we're just kidding around with this. We're not kidding around for this.
Yeah.
Like, the production value that is lacked at the Pac-12 has been remarkable. And that doesn't even account for college basketball, because college basketball is a whole nother, hey, are we going to pay a union electrician, a union sound guy to mic all of the baskets? Are we going to pay, like, because think about that. Are we going to contract non-union workers? How's that going to go over?
Not well.
You can't do that, right? So it's things you don't think about. Just a rowdy dude from South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Pac-12 is high. If they think they will get people to give up their Androids to watch Pac-12 football and they won't be on YouTube or Hulu or ESPN, a deal with Apple is a path towards irrelevance. I think it's a huge question mark. Because how does it impact your recruiting? Because here's the other thing. Okay, so you're an Android user. You're never going to see Pac-12 sports on Apple. So how does that impact your recruiting? How does that impact your marketing? What's your revenue split with Apple TV? Right? Are you doing a lump sum payment? I would assume that you have to do a lump sum payment. By the way, are you going to take subscriber rebates? Hey, if we don't get 1 million new subscribers, we're going to pay you less. Are you going to, because that's what I think Apple probably would like to do.
Yeah.
Because they don't care as long as they get new subscribers.
And just so we're clear, Android users can get Apple TV on their device, but they have to use web browser.
Yes.
Apple TV does not support Android devices through the Apple TV app. So you can access it via Chrome, but in that instance, you would still have to have an Apple ID to sign in. So technically,
it is difficult to do.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
It's not easy to do.
There's no doubt.
And the Surface does not, by the way, Apple TV does not work on Surfaces, which is a tablet, a Windows-based tablet.
Yeah.
So good luck with that. Connor Johnson, and I hesitate to read your comments, Connor, because usually you're difficult. Pac-12 baseball, every game is on Pac-12 networks, which will be sold to the highest bidder. So wait, let me get this right. So you think Apple is going to buy Pac-12 networks lock, stock, and barrel?
Hell no.
Because if that deal was available, wouldn't they have done it already?
Yeah, yeah.
And this has been talked about repeatedly over and over again. What's the upside? Because everybody said Amazon Prime Sports is going to buy Pac-12 networks. What's the upside for them to do that?
And by the way, did that ever happen?
What is the upside? In all seriousness, what is the upside for Apple TV to buy Pac-12 networks? There's not a lot of upside. They're not in the sports production business. MLB produces their games for them. MLS produces their games for them. MLS is in charge of all of the talent, and they are in charge of all of the production. They're not, Apple TV's not a production house.
Yeah.
You know? Again, Riley O'Brien with by the way. Riley, at some point you need to explain this.
I mean, at some point there needs to be a reason.
I don't get it. And Donuts, what's up, my guy? Thank you for the golf tip, because I shot my lowest round of the year today. Shot a 35 on the back nine. You're welcome. Washington State saw a 7.7 decrease in enrollment last year. And I am telling you, the people at Washington State are exceptionally nervous about their financial situation. We talk to people up there semi-regularly.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me this week at Washington State, I am concerned we will not have sports in 5 years.
Do you know what that's like these days?
If something doesn't change, I am concerned we will not have, and the word this person used was athletics. I am concerned that we will not have athletics in 5 years if something doesn't change, because the staff is not willing. The academics up there are not willing to continue to subsidize athletics.
Yeah.
And I think they are on shaky ground.
Well, I think the reality is athletics should be able to pay for itself. I mean, that's the worst part about it. I mean, again, with all due respect to academics, the conversation of, academics are subsidizing athletics, that's an incredible statement. I mean, just think about that.
That's unbelievable.
Do you know how much of a miss you have to have, how much incompetence there is, respectfully, to Washington State? Do you understand how bad you got to mess it up and not sell your product and not do your job to have the academic side of a university basically keeping you afloat? That's incredible to me.
Yeah, it's shocking we're talking about this again. Matt Tolman says, PAC going to be streaming on Twitch, competing with gamers and thirst traps for views. Twitch is actually still the largest. Did you guys see that come out the other day? Twitch is still the largest streamer. War Room says lots of glitches and delays if that was to happen. Dude, and if you're a Pac-12 fan and you've watched, because Jake and I have watched a ton of Pac-12 networks, the game production value on Pac-12 networks is not good.
Yeah.
Especially football.
Yeah.
Where they really struggle. You can tell when their producer director team is on site versus not.
Mm-hmm.
Because the games are on site, they're fine. When you're thinking about the camera people, you're like, oh boy. Because you don't think about it on golf or ESPN or CBS. You would never have that problem at Notre Dame.
Nope.
You would never have that problem at Ohio State. You would never have that problem at any major university outside of the Pac-12.
Yep.
John Menser says the PAC is going to set up a site where fans attending the game shoot the footage for them via their cell phones. John, do not speak that into truth. Please do not speak that into truth.
Let's not.
Do not speak that in the truth. That would be incredibly sad. Matt Hartley says Larry Scott did everything wrong. Everything wrong.
Yeah.
Everything wrong. Everything wrong. Terrible. Let's see. Who else? Let me get some. I see a lot of new people in today. You guys, I really appreciate you watching the show. There's a lot of names that I don't recognize, so welcome to the show. I'm Monty, that's Jake, and every show at this time, we generally do this really special thing where we remind you that Bucked Up is the official energy provider of the Monty Show. And we drink a Bucked Up buckshot because they are the single greatest energy providers of the day. I will tell you, I had one of these at 6 o'clock this morning before I went and played golf. Played 18 holes, drank a whole flask of water, and had a Bucked Up Miami, and I feel great. I am not tired. I am not lacking energy, and that's what I love about Buckshot, and I want to give them to you free. In the description below on this show, there are 6 free samples of Buckshot. They'll send them right to your door. The guys at Bucked Up will send them right to your door for free. Just go click the link in the description below. Buckshot, clean, long-lasting energy to give you that high-powered finish you need to your day. You know what that post-lunch carb crash is like. You know what that drive home, it can be difficult when you're out of energy. It's Friday. It's been a long week. Pop a Buckshot and get yourself through the rest of the day. Great ingredients. And I tell you now, it's 100 milligrams of caffeine, and it finishes your day off great. You don't get shakes. You don't have highs and lows. You just feel better. And you know the best part about Buckshot? Mentally, you feel better.
Yep.
That's what I love about it. Bucked Up, the best energy drink in the business. I love them. I have them every day. And I just feel better. And I say it all the time. I got on the scale this morning. I've officially passed the 30 pounds lost mark. Thank you. And I give a lot of credit to Bucked Up. I do, because I feel better. One of the things that I've noticed since I started using Bucked Up products across the board, I sleep way better. I sleep way, way better because the ingredients are clean, whether it's their protein, whether it is their greens, their collagen peptides, their Buck Bars, you guys. I'm telling you, the Buck Bars at Bucked Up, unbelievable. Again, in the description below, there's a link. They'll send you a sampler pack of Buck Bars straight to your front door for free. I'm telling you, I hate protein bars. I hate them. I've struggled with them my entire life.
Yes.
I love the Buck Bar, the Snickerdoodle, the everything bar, the chocolate, like everything that they do in bars, phenomenal. And it's really helped me keep my appetite suppressed. I'm telling you, without Bucked Up, I would not have lost the 30 pounds. And I just love it, man.